Okay, good morning, students. Can you hear me? Give me a ping, yes or no. Okay, fine. So before starting with the next unit, I'll just quickly revise what we did yesterday. We started with a new unit, that is graphical device interface, mainly dealing with graphics in C Sharp. And whenever we want to use graphics, what we do is we import such type of namespaces like system.drawing, system.text, printing, imaging, internal drawing 2D, design, etc. And to start with coding in a graphics, what we require is a graphics class, and we create either paint event in C Sharp or on paint event in VB and create the object of graphics using this particular syntax, right? And we import this to namespace while working with graphics in C Sharp. Then the graphics class has its inbuilt methods like draw arc, draw curve, draw ellipse, draw image, draw line that you've seen in a live demo yesterday. So not discussing much about this thing right now. Then it has mainly 4 class objects: brush, that is used to fill colors and patterns, pens to draw the shapes, font to describe some particular font, color to provide the RGB component along with alpha component, that is intensity of a color. Then we have a brush class. The brush class mainly has 3 to 4 different brushes like solid brush, texture brush, rectangle gradient and linear gradient, but we are not dealing with rectangle gradient. Solid brush is single color brush. Texture brush is used for filling up an object or a shape with particular pattern or image. Linear gradient is used to fill a particular object with multicolors. We already seen that example, forward diagonal and backward diagonal here, right? Then pen class mainly it is used for drawing some particular object on a given C sharp graphics, right? You have 4 different types of arguments. Either you provide only color, you only provide brush, you provide brush with its size, you provide color with the size. So everything will work in your pen class. Then pen class properties, alignment, where you want to put your particular shape, brush, what type of brush you want to use, color, this 4 color of components, and width, by what width you want to have the particular object to be drawn. Next, font class. Whenever you are defining a font class, you define your font, say whatever font you want to, and using, and along with that, you provide the font style, that is these 5 members: bold, italic, regular, strikeout, underline. As I said, to draw any object, mainly we will be using a rectangle structure. In this, can anyone tell me these arguments in the answers? I want what this 4 arguments stands for. Quickly, give me your answers. Public rectangle, 4 integer variables as arguments. So what each argument stands for? I want the answer. Be quick, students. Okay, Heli has given some answer. I will say it whether it is correct or not after a few seconds, few minutes. Sorry. Okay, Vishweshwari has given answer. Tumin has given answer. Harsh has given some answer. Be quick, guys. Those are giving the answers. Right. So I've been sent many mixed answers, left upper coordinates, then height and width, then x, y position, length and height, x, y, length, height, x, y. Okay, so probably all the answers are quite incorrect. So let me just revise this again. The first particular argument is top x coordinate. The second argument is left x coordinate. The third argument is width, and the fourth one is height. Remember this thing. You've given me wrong answers actually, but try to remember this thing. Top, left, width, height, right? Fine. Moving on ahead. We have seen few of the examples that how you can draw some shapes in your C sharp, right? So first one was to create multicolor rectangles. For that we have used linear gradient brush that draws a rectangle of two colors from upper right to bottom left, or you can use solid brush instead of this. I already shown you the example, also shared the particular code with you in your WhatsApp group, right? Then we have seen an example to create an arc. So again, draw arc is a direct method which we call using the graphics object and pass this particular argument, start angle and sweep angle. Then to draw three different colored lines, so we create one pen object with a color, then define 2 points, starting point and ending points, and just provide those points with a pen as an argument in a draw line function. And last one was creating the ellipse. So again, create a pen, create a rectangle, give the size and coordinates, and use those particular of as an arguments in a draw ellipse method. So quite easy to remember all these things, right guys? So now moving on to next topic or next unit probably, that is WPF. That stands for Windows Presentation Foundation. Now what is Windows Presentation Foundation? Mainly this particular module is bind with Windows Form application. Right? Remember, this particular thing is bound with Windows Form application. Why? Because it is an enhancement to the GUI of Windows Forms. I'm just again repeating, it is an enhancement of GUI of Windows Form. It has no particular dealing with backend code. The backend code remains the same as Windows Form. So I hope you remember Windows Form. Yes or no? Quickly reply. I hope majority of the attendees remember what is Windows Forms. Fine. Thank you, students. So moving on. So WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation, it is a powerful framework for building Windows applications only. Right? It is because ASP is having support of CSS. So it is like CSS for Windows application. It is a complex framework that provides wide range of form elements and provides elegant styles for the application appearance. See, again I'm saying it is mainly dealing with appearance, that is GUI. So it is providing wide range of form elements and elegant styles for application appearance. Now for exam point of view, this architecture is important. Either if it is asked for just 4 marks, you will be asked to draw a simple architecture of WPF. If it is for 6 marks and 8 marks, explain WPF architecture with diagram. So this is what the answer is. Either architecture is asked, then only architecture 4 marks, only these lines. If it is asked explanation, you need to write these lines also. So let us try to understand what this architecture states. Yes, it works like graphics enhancement, nothing else. So the WPF architecture, the first layer is presentation framework. So it is mainly dealing with high level features like application window, panel, style, controls, layouts, content. So all those components that are used to enhance the appearance are available in this particular layer. All those components that are used for enhancing the appearance of your Windows application will be available in this particular framework. Then comes presentation core. So it is a low level API. Now anyone just give me quickly the answer of full form of API. Quickly. Waiting for the answers. What is the full form of API, guys? No, I want the full form first of all. Give me the full form. Okay, application program interface. Yes, it is right, Bhargav. Oh, I would say it is application programming interface rather. Right, it is used to communicate between two systems. Exactly, good tuning. Right, so it is a low-level application program interface exposed by WPF, providing the features for 2D, 3D geometries. That means if you want to enhance your particular appearance with 2D and 3D objects, you will require this particular layer for the interaction between these two different applications, that is your WPF or your Windows application and your 2D objects. Then comes CLR. What is the full form of CLR? Give me in chat. Give me the answer. CLR. Give me the answer, guys. Okay, one answer, two answers. Other answers, guys, come on. Give me what is common. Okay, right, fine. So it is common language runtime. Guys, okay, it's good you have kept in your mind this particular full form. So common language runtime, the use of common language runtime is to execute any application. So similarly, it consists of all the components that are required for efficient execution of WPF application. So mainly it executes WPF application. Next comes MIL core. Remember this. It provides media integration layer. So MIL is for media integration layer, and it directly provides DirectX and 2D 3D support. So mainly it is dealing with presentation core. It is providing an communication between the application and 2D 3D objects, and this is responsible for the backend support for this thing. So media integration layer deals with DirectX and 2D 3D support. Now what is DirectX? It is a low-level API through which WPF renders all graphics. So to have all the graphics to be embedded on your all types of controls, you will require DirectX. That is a low-level API. And user 32 manages the memory and process separation. So mainly all the types of memory management is done in WPF by user 32. And kernel is an operating system layer that contains all components that provides better graphics like drivers and GDR. Yeah, there is something like user 64, but we are not going to deal with it. It is for pure part of operating system, so I'm not going to go deep in operating system, Margot. Fine. So this is the architecture that you need to remember for exam purpose if the exams are getting conducted, right? So try to remember one line answers for each of them. It can be directly 6 to 8 marks, direct mark gaining answer. Just remember what it does. It provides components for graphics. It provides API for 2D and 3D objects. It executes WPF application. It provides indirect support for DirectX and 2D and 3D. It provides low-level API for graphics. It manages memory, and it is a operating system layer providing all types of drivers for graphics. No, DirectX will not be taught, Kunal. It's not the part of our syllabus, so I'm not going to go deep in this. Fine. So moving on ahead with the next. So features of WPF. Again, it's an important question for 4 marks. It will be asked like explain WPF in detail. So you need to define what is WPF and you need to write these features. That's it. So in the earlier GUI frameworks, there was no real separation between how application looks and how it should behave. Both GUI and behavior was created in the same language. So C# or VB.NET, which would require more effort from the developer to implement both UI and behavior associated with it. So in short, what this line says, WPF provides two different parts. The first part is the GUI part, and the second part is the backend code part. So we have two different behaviors for two different things. The first part is you provide GUI, you provide interface, you use controls, you add some graphics to that controls in whatever way you want. That will be design part. And for each control, there will be a backend CS file, that is code file, in which you can code for that particular control. So Microsoft has provided two different layers now for the GUI development as well as the coding associated with the GUI. Next, UI elements are designed using XAML in WPF. So XAML stands for Extended or Extensible Application Markup Language. Now you have learned HTML in your this WT subject, right? So similarly, like HTML, this WPF uses XAML markup language, that is Extended Application Markup Language. So whatever GUI part you are going to do in your WPF, you need to write code in XAML. Likewise, in WT, as you are writing all the codes of design part in HTML using CSS, similarly, all the GUI related work will be done using XAML. So XAML has been provided by Microsoft to enhance the appearance of Windows application layouts or controls. Next, with XAML, the programmers can work in parallel with designers with a large set of controls and components. You are having a huge set of controls that you can work on, and you need to work with XAML only. Next thing, the separation between GUI and its behavior can allow us to easily change the look and controls by using styles and templates. I'll show you how you can do this. I'm not going with this in depth. WPF supports 3D graphics so that you can make your GUI more special, right? So now, how WPF differs from your normal Windows Phone application? So this is the difference. Maybe it won't be clearly visible in your screen because it's an image. So whenever you will see the PPT uploaded in your e-content, you will be able to look at to this particular differences very clearly. I'm just narrating all the differences right now. So if I talk about Windows Forms, it is an old concept of developing desktop applications, and WPF is the advanced or latest concept of developing applications. Second, Windows Forms are simple to use as controls can be easily used. Yes, Windows Forms are quite easy to use, but WPF are quite complex because you need to write code of XAML to generate your control, to generate graphics for your control. So it is quite complex to use. Windows Forms are less scalable if the UI elements needs to be extended. So if you want to enhance some particular graphics in Windows Form, you won't be able to enhance those graphics easily. But in case of WPF, it is easily or extensively scalable for the UI elements in application. So you can add, you can enhance your appearance, the graphics as how you like and as how much or as per your requirement. If you want to add mixture of some colors, you want to have enhance the patterns in your particular object or controls, you can do it easily. That is what we cannot do in Windows Forms. The next thing is Windows Form have less secure features. WPF has enhanced security features. Yes, because GUI can be stored in XML and XML can be encrypted. That is why it is having security features. Next, Windows Forms are not used where designing is required. Exactly. As I discussed, where you want much type of design layouts, you cannot use Windows Forms. You can use WPF instead where you want the design. Where you want to put more focus on design, you have to use WPF. But where you are making more focus on coding part, you can go with Windows Forms directly. Next, in Windows Forms, things are achieved at slower rate. Yes, it takes much more time to execute. WPF executes at a faster rate. That is what differentiates Windows Forms and WPF. So for exam, it will be a 4 marks question, and out of these 6 differences, you need to write at least 5 answers, 5 differences. So try to remember this, and you need to write this. So differentiate WPF and Windows Forms, difference between WPF and Windows Forms, or it can be asked in such a way that explain WPF and Windows Forms. So you can write this answer. Fine. So moving on next, we are now introducing the XAML. But before I introduce XAML, I want from you the answer that give me the generalized structure of HTML page. Quickly, in your answers. Give me a generalized structure of HTML. Give me the complete syntax properly, quickly guys, in one line. Okay, Tumin has given some good answer. Yes, Yatri, Vishweshwari, Janish, Kaushal, Hetvi, Forum, Dhairya, Anjali, Deep. Give me the answers. Okay, Nishant, good. Kunal, good. Right. So, guys, you remember the syntax of HTML quite well, right? So, HTML starts with HTML, ends with slash HTML, and between that, you provide body tag and all those things, stuff for your design. Similarly, XAML has its own syntax. So, while working with WPF, XAML plays a vital role. Now, XAML stands for Extended or Extensible Application Markup Language. It is simple and declarative language based on XML. And it is very easy to create, and initialize set of properties or objects with hierarchical relations. Right? So it is mainly used for designing GUIs only. Now, what is the syntax? C. As you have HTML tag in your WT, you are having window tag in XAML. And what it takes as an arguments or properties, window X is by default extension of XML being used or object being used for by XML. So X colon class equals to application dot main window. So this is the class that is by default class of your XML or WPF application dot main window. Then what is the title of that particular window? That is whatever title you want to define here. That means title tag of your HTML again. So directly a binding title here in this syntax only. Now height and width are optional, but if you write it's good. So it will create that layout of this particular height in centimeters and width in this centimeters, not centimeters, sorry, pixels. Right? So window class equals to application dot main window. That's it. That is the first line, and then you provide title, height, and width. Then you end that window tag. So this HTML tag of W2 has been ended here. So window tag has opened, window tag is closed. Now you write all the design codes in body tag in your HTML. So instead of body tag, in XML we are having grid tag. Whatever design part you want to add in your WPF application, you are going to add all these in these two, between these two tags, that is grid and /grid. So this is the generalized syntax of XAML. Window X class equals to application dot main window, title equals to whatever title you want to give, height and width that you can set on your own. Then grid tag starts, you provide all the design layouts, then grid tags ends, and then window tags ends. No, there is no head type tags in XML. Only this is the generalized syntax of XML. We are not adding anything in this. Clear, Nishant? Only remember this 4 lines, nothing else. Fine. So moving on next, we see one of the example. So again, moving with the same syntax, your control declaration goes here, right? As I say, so this is the answer for your generalized syntax of XML. Let me just recall one thing. In exam, there will be one question, explain generalized syntax of XML for 4 marks. So only these 4 lines you need to write along with a short description of XML. That's it, what it stands for and why we are using it. And then these 4 lines for these 4 lines. Any of these you can write for 4 marks. So again, I am repeating, WPF unit will be having theory as well as some easy programs. That programs I am going to show you in the later part of this PPT. So now moving on to some of the commonly used controls with its properties. Now if you recall the controls of Windows Phone, we have gone through some of the controls like text box, then button, then checkbox, then checklist box, then radio buttons, combo box, label, list box, and many more, right? Like crystal reports and all these things, group box and all these things. So similarly, we had some properties for each type of controls. Let us see if I'm using text box. If I want to use text box as a password, we were using password care property. If I want to use that particular text box as a text area, that is a large text box, we are using multi-line property. Right? So each and every control had its own properties. So similarly, WPF has its own controls and has its own properties. So remember students, this is very much important question from my side for your examination, because there are about 6 to 8 controls and each control carry 2 marks. I am going to show what you need to write, but just remember this can be an important question for your exam. So the first control is button. Now button can be declared as this. Again, window tag X class equals to application dot main window, title equals to main window, height and width is set. Now grid. In grid, I am declaring the button. So button X, name equals to button. So name here stands for unique identification, same as your HTML. Input type equals to text, name equals to something. So name is the unique identification of this particular control button. Then content, instead of text or value, we are writing content here. Content is whatever you want to display on that particular control. So content equals to click me. That is the text equals to click me. Then if you write these two properties, it's okay. If you don't write, it's okay for me. Horizontal alignment equals to left, where you want to align this. Then vertical alignment equals to top. And what are the margins you want to set? The margins are same as HTML, right? Top, left, bottom, right. And then width, by what width you want to set this particular control. So for exam purpose, what you need to write is you declare window with this syntax, we declare grid, we write the first line and close this tag here, and then close the grid tag, close the window tag. This is the syntax for exam purpose. Now, what are the few of the properties? Name defines the unique identification of the button. Content is the text. Is enabled, that means you want this particular control to be enabled or not. Height and width. Background, if you want to change the color of the background or if you want to put some image in the background. And visibility, it provides an option whether a control is visible during execution or not. Right? Visible property of your Windows Phone. So for exam, you need to write only this much for 2 marks. What is the default event of button? Same as Windows Phone, it is click event. So remember this thing, only 4 lines of this syntax, and say for 2 marks you write either 3 to 4 properties from this and write down this default event. That's it. Clear? Any questions in this? Fine. So moving ahead, next control is label. So how to declare a label? Grid label x name equals to label, content equals to hello world, and tag is over. Again the same properties, name, content is enabled, height, background, width, visibility. But what is the default event of, sorry, not button but label? It's a printing mistake from my side. Copy paste like you. Okay, so default event of label is, in Windows Phone we are having only click event, but here for label we are having label clicked event. So there is a difference between some events between WPF and Windows Phones. For button it is click in both. For label in Windows Phone it is click event only. In WPF we are having label clicked event. Fine. Moving ahead, the text box. So again, grid text box name equals to txt1. If you want to display some content, you can display here, or you can just go with the properties, that is name, content is enabled, height, background, visibility, width, etc. Next, again talking about this particular, it is a copy paste guys, please pardon me regarding this particular mistake. So default event of text box is text changed. It is same as your Windows Phone. So don't worry. Next, checkbox. Again, define a checkbox using checkbox X name equals to checkbox 1 or whatever name you want to give. Now, what will be the text beside that checkbox? That is hello world. Then what are the properties? These are the same properties as the other controls. And now the default event of checkbox is checked. In Windows Phone, we were having the default event as checked changed. So there is a difference between the events of Windows Phone and WPF in checkbox. It is checked event, not checked changed event. Moving on next, radio buttons. Same thing, name equals to RD button 1. If you want to display some value with that particular control, you can use this content property. So again, the event is checked, not checked changed, because in Windows Phone we are having checked changed event. Right? So what next control is list box. Again, the same syntax, same properties, and the default event is in Windows Phone, we were having selected index changed. And here we are having selection changed event. So just try to remember these events. Windows, it was selected index changed, and here we are having only selection changed. Right, moving on next, combo box, same thing, same properties, and again the change in the property, that is selected index changed in Windows form and selection changed in this WPF. And last is group box, that you know now. Group box doesn't have any properties. So only group box name equals to group box 1. And instead of date time picker of Windows form, we are having date picker in this WPF. It provides built-in calendar only, right? So date picker name equals to date picker 1. Yeah, there is some questions I'm just going for. I will show you the output. Just wait. I will go for the demo once I am completing with this PPT. Okay, difference between list box and combo box, Ali. Remember that combo box is used whenever you want a user to select only one value from the list of values. And if you want that user can select multiple values from the list of values, we use list box. That's it. Clear? Is it clear? Fine. Okay. So moving ahead. So what I am doing now, I am going to show you each slide or each controls one more time, and then I'm going to raise some questions first. And then we will go for programs and then a live demo of one of the program. No, WPF is not a command line interface. You will see, I will show you. Just wait for a few minutes. When we go for live demo, you will come to know is it a command line or not. Fine. So go through these slides quickly. I'm starting with the button control. Okay. So go through these slides. I will change exactly after 10 seconds each slide. Next. 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 Yes, Hussein, X means that is the letter X, not the cross sign. So next control. Next control. Next control. Next control. Okay, fine. So now it's time to give me some answers from your side. But before that, I have been given one question from Hussein. What does X stands for? X stands for XAML. It's an object of XAML. So whenever we are writing XAML code, we define that this is an XAML code using X symbol. Clear, Hussein? Okay. So now I would say, Anjali, give me the default event of label. Anjali Kumari, give me a default event of label. Bhargav, yes, we have to write compulsorily X. Be quick, Anjali. What is the default event of label? Good. Label clicked. Then what is the default event of combo box? Selection changed. Very good. Then what is the default event of text box? Default event of text box. Good. Text changed. What is the default event of radio button? Yes, very good. So you are good. You remembered all these things in one particular slide only. That's very good. Appreciable. Fine. So moving on next, coming back to your PPT. Now we are going to see some of the few examples, and all those examples we have already done in our Windows Form chapter. So I'm just revising how you are revising it, how you can use it using WPF, nothing else. So few examples. The first example is write a design and backend code for the following. Consider three text box txt1, 2, 3 and one button. On clicking button 1, it should add two numbers of text box 1 and text box 2 and display result in text box 3. Now if you see, we already done this program in WPF, that calculator program, add, division, subtraction and multiplication. So same thing, the code remains the same. Only what you need to write is the design part. So I'm declaring Windows X class equals to application name dot main window, title equals to main window, and height and width. In the grid, I'm declaring one text box as txt1, other text box as txt2, other text box as txt3, and one button as btn1. So this is the design part. That's it. And you are using the code part using system and button one click convert the two text box to integer, add them and store it in the text box. See, this code you know. Only you have to deal with this code part, because in Windows Form we were not having any design codes. But here we are going to deal with design codes. So this question contains 6 to 8 marks, guys. 6 marks for midterm, 8 marks for final examination maybe. So try to remember only the syntax, nothing else. I'm not asking you to write horizontal alignment or anything. You just define the name and end a particular tag properly. That's it. Clear with this? So I move on to the next example. No height width, no nothing, nothing. Okay. Actually, the WPF has its own engine that can create all the GUIs quite quickly than the Windows Form. And that is why the CLR has been externally embedded in this particular WPF. The CLR of the complete .NET, or I would say .NET framework, is different, and WPF is its own core where you can have the execution of your application quite faster than any other application. And what it does, if I compare this WPF with your Windows Forms, what actually does is, whenever we are executing Windows Forms, first the Windows Form will go to the design file that has been created automatically by the software whenever we are dragging, dropping the control on the form tag, form but form. So first it will go to that design file, it will execute all the codes of the design file and then execute our backend code file. So it will take quite a more time to execute. But here what we are doing is we are just providing the code as well as the backend part in the same layout. That is why it is faster. No, IDE will not change. It will only have some more proper few more properties than Windows Form. I will show you. No extensions will be added. Just wait and watch. Fine. So moving on to the next example, guys. That is write a design and a backend code for the following. Consider two text box, two buttons. Clicking button 1, it should copy text from text box 1 to text box 2. And clicking button 2 should pop up the text in the text 2. A simple example. So what you are doing, again declare a window class or window tag, then two text box, two buttons, and directly go for the code part. Button 1 click will write textbox2.text equals to textbox1.text. So add whatever text that has been written in textbox1 to textbox2. And on button 2 click, what it should do, it should message box should show textbox2.text. Same code as your Windows Forms. So there is nothing difficult actually in coding. What you need to remember is this design part only. And that is easy to remember. Moving on to the next example, write a XML code for the following. Only XML code is being asked first of all. Consider text box 1 for first number, text box 2 for second number, text box 3 for answer, four buttons, button 1, 2, 3, 4 for addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. And write a backend code to take input of two numbers and display relevant output in the text box 3 as per button click. So same as the Windows Phone application that we did in our practical session. Two text box for input, one text box for output, four buttons for add, mul, division and subtraction. So first of all, the design part. Again, window tag has been defined. Then three text box and four buttons. That's it. And here we are generating one click event because we need to get the answer in text box 3 on button click. So button 1 click event has been generated here. So remember this thing also. Click equals to button 1 underscore click, button 2 underscore click, likewise button 3 and button 4 underscore click. So this is just the syntax, how you will go with the design part. The code part remains the same. Convert the values of text box 1 and 2 to integer and store it in two integer variables. Add those two integer variables and store it in the text box 3. Similarly for subtraction, multiplication and division. Again a 6 to 8 mark question, guys. Quite easy to remember and very easy to get full marks in this. Next example. Consider a text box 1 for full name, text box 2 for enrollment, text box 3 for email, and text box 4 for mobile, and button 1. Okay, just moving to the previous slide. Yes, forum. Can we give you answer? Give you a question, please. Forum. Okay, fine. So is it easy? Is it to understand forum the code? Okay, fine. So moving on to the next, we are having four text box, one for full name, two second for enrollment, third for email, fourth for mobile, and one button called as button 1. So I think you know this application very well. Input for each of these controls and pop up it in a message box. That's it. So again, create a window tag, create four text box, one button, and its click event as button underscore click. Is it audible, guys? Because there was some network issues from my side. Is it audible, guys? Fine, thank you. And sorry for inconvenience from my side. Okay, so the code will be, you take input of all these text box in different strings, append those strings using plus sign, and then message box dot show. That's it. So again, this particular two slide code contains 6 to 8 marks of final examination and midterm as well. So I think it is easy to remember, guys. Yes or no? Okay. The last example, I think you remember the example that we did in the practical session, that was color change, background color, forecolor, and form color. The same application I have provided here using WPF. That is, write an XML code for the following. Consider text box txt1, consider two groups of radio buttons. One group is for forecolor, second is for back color. And based on whatever radio button you select, you need to change the color, either forecolor or back color. So the design code goes like this: only one text box, and I have taken 6 radio buttons and a group box also, but I have not defined a group box here. No need to define in the exam also, no need. It is okay, because we are going to write the individual code on the backend side, so no need to define group box right now. Right, so this is the design part. Next, if I go for the code, this is the code. Only the change with the Windows form and this WPF is this event. In Windows form, we are having checked changed event. Here we are having only checked event. So again, text1.forecolor equals to color.red. Then again, checked event of radio button 2, forecolor green. Radio button 3, checked event, forecolor blue. And similarly, radio 4, 5, 6, back color orange, back color cyan, and back color pink. So it is same as the code of your Windows form. Only the change is this event. Instead of check change, we are writing only checked event. Right? So this is what WPF is. Right? And now I'm going to just show you the layout of WPF and maybe one simple example of WPF. I'm not going to go deep in the code part. Fine. So moving on to the WPF in the Visual Studio. Because we didn't create group, because we are going to individually code each radio button. If you see the PPT here, what I have done is I have coded individually each radio button. See, if radio button 1 has been checked, you need to change the forecolor of text box to red. If radio button 2 has been checked instead of radio button 1, then you need to change the forecolor of radio text box to green. So individual coding of each of these radio buttons has been made. So there is no need of grouping each radio buttons. That is why I have not created any groups. Clear? Clear with this, Ali? I will just show you the coding of that particular video. What I would say, Windows Form also. In Windows Form also, what we did, we code for each of them. So there was no need of group box actually there. But because I want to just differentiate the two different layouts, I have defined group box in that particular Windows Form. Even you can do it here also, I don't mind. Fine. So I'm just going for one single demo of WPF. So go to Windows Forms, sorry, go to Visual Studio, File, New, project, and instead of Windows Form, I will select WPF application, and my language will be Visual Sharp, C Sharp. Click on OK. So let it generate the complete view for us. Right. So it is loading the design part. Let it load. You can see by default that window XML coding part has been generated. Now there are too much of parameters being used by this particular window tag, but we are not going to remember any of this. So don't try to read even. It is the supporting XML files that are available online that is used by this WPF application. Now, the difference between the Windows Form, right, and this WPF is in Windows Form we are getting one form, but here we are getting one main window. And in that particular we were having the design part. Here it is a XAML and XAML.cs file. So if you want, you can go directly here, or you can just drag and drop controls from the toolbox. So these are the toolbox, the same button, checkbox, combo box, label, radio buttons, text box, all this. So I'll just put one button here. So you can see automatically I have been given some enhanced options of creating and viewing this particular button. So if I put and stretch this button in this way, automatically the code has been written in this design layout. See this, right? Now if I go to the properties of this, you can see that the property layout is quite different than Windows Forms. It is having mainly these options, and the name you can change if you want. Now brush is having the properties of background color and all these things. See, so different shades of colors have been provided in this background. The opacity, you can use how you want to mask your color, different shades of color. You want to tile your particular button. So this is how you enhance the graphics, appearance, opacity, visibility, border thickness. Some of the common controls, what should be content? Let us say I want to change content to submit. So it will be a submit is enabled or not, then automation. So you can go through these options because there are a lot of options available for each and every control in this. Shubham, put your question in the chat. Any questions you have, you can put it in the chat. Then we are having text property, transform property, and miscellaneous properties. So you can go through all these properties because I don't like personally this WPF because it is just enhancing the graphics. And whenever we are dealing with the software development, the graphics that I require for software development is available with Windows also. So Krunal, I would like to answer your question now that Windows Forms are far better than this particular WPF applications. The reason is only deployment of Windows Form is quite easy rather than this WPF application. Opacity option is in these background property. You can go to back brush and you can see opacity mask and appearance here. Right guys, so I'm just moving with this particular Where is my main window? Sorry. Just a moment, guys. I'm just showing you the code and then we'll end this session. So I'll just put up directly one button. And on button 1, if I click on this button, it should generate a button click event and say message box dot show hello WPF. Execute this application using control function F9, F5 or control F5 rather. It will take first time execution load and then it will never get slow rate of execution. Where is the button? Sorry guys, just a moment. File, new project, WPF application. Let the designer get load. I will put one button and write down the code again. I think there was some issue with the code from my side. Yes, I have got that particular question from your side that sometimes video is lagging whenever I am switching over from PPT to this Visual Studio. So we have got the main window. I am taking one button here, stretching it to my requirement, double click on it, get its event generated, message box.show hello WPF. Save it. Let us execute this. If I click on this, you are getting so the coding is same as your Windows form, only the design layout is changing. Right guys? So any questions with this now? Okay, so just an important announcement for you guys. Tomorrow we are going to start with probably the last unit of this this particular .NET subject, that is Advanced C#. Right, in next 2 days we are going to complete that Advanced C#, and then we will go with some other tasks. The task will be given and will be discussed in the next week sessions. So those who are attending right now, inform your friends about the tomorrow's session. Right? So guys, thank you very much. Stay home, stay safe, take care. Goodbye for the day. Happy madam, you can take over. I have made you the presenter. Happy ma'am, kindly take over. I have made you the presenter.
Ready. Am I audible, students? Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Madam, can you speak?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is audible, but your screen is not there. Yeah, now screen is there. Exactly.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, welcome. Fine for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. One more time, let's
Madam,
start with
your
the
voice is quite
compilation.
low. Your voice is quite low.
Hello. Now, is it okay?
Your voice is still quite low.
Hello.
Yeah, fine. Go
Am
for
I
it.
audible? Fine. Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so quickly just revise a previous session some topic related with our flow graph and related with our loop control optimization methodologies. Now, what is the dominators? what is the natural loops, what is the inner loops, and what is the pre-header, right? So as we were discussed in our previous sessions, that is dominators. Now, if we'll see that voice is not clear, hard to resolve. Hello? Now is it okay? Or still having some issues? Yes, Bhargav?
Yes, your voice and video
Yes.
both are clear, ma'am. You can go for it.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
So have the dominators, as we were discussed in our last sessions, that initial node is known as the dominators for every node, as well as the node number 2 is also dominators for dominates for the 3, 4, and 5. Now, if we'll see what is the natural loops, then if is there any path between your last node to the first node, or you can say the last point to the entry point, then that type of loops are known as the natural loops. Now, what is the inner loops? A loop inside one more loop, that is known as the inner loops. So as we are seeing in our example, that B0, B1 and B2 and B2 to B0, if I am having some loop, then that B0, B1 and B2 and B2 to B0 will say that that is the inner loop for the given example. Now, what is the pre-header? Some concepts like if we want to remove some sentences from my loop, and if I want to add that sentence out of my loop, then that type of sentences are known as the pre-header for my given loop. Now, why it is known as the pre-header? Because it is the successor for on it is only the header of my successor node. Now, what is successor? That successor is something called like a header part, right? So before I have a pre-header, my figure is something like header in a loop. And if I'll remove something out of my loop and added it before the loop, then that section is known as the pre-header for my loop, right? Now, let's start with the global data flow analysis. Have your flow of control, or you can say a flow of data can be analyzed by our global data flow method. Now, as we have discussed that there is something called a control to your flow of data. There is something called the optimization, right? So that all things are always necessary for my compiler. Why? Because if we want to increase the efficiency of our compiler, then that type of flow control, that type of data flow control, that type of concepts are always required for my compiler for the better efficiency, for the better efficient code, for the better efficient of time consuming process, and a better target code generation methodologies, right? So the first of all, let's start with the global data flow analysis. Now, the information which we have collected from our different types of functions for different types of methodologies. And if we want to merge it with one equation, right? That first of all, starting with this function, we just need to go from function 1 to the function 2, and function 2 will generate some data. And that some data we will require to produce the next process, right? So that type of processes and that type of equations will met by our compiler by itself, that how many processes or how many sentences I'm going to eliminate, how many processes I'm going to generate one by one, that which process will complete first, then which process complete second time. That type of equations your compiler going to met by itself. So that type of equation is known as out of S equals to, S is nothing but the sentence, right? And out is nothing but the known as the output. Output sentence is equals to generated statement union with the killed statement as well as input statement, right? So what is the meaning and how can you read this equation that I'm going to explain? The information at the end of statement is either generated within the statement or enter at the beginning and is not killed the control flow through the statement. Now, what is the actual meaning of our sentence, right? So now if I'll say function 1 can call function 2, right? Now function 2 will generate some data, something like a plus b, right? Now function 3, and it will pass the data to function, pass the data to function 3, right? And function 3 will produce the output, right? So in that case, what is the actual process? Now the output going to be generated by only with the function 3, right? So the our out s is the function 3, right? Now in between, starting off the initial function 1 to the function 3, how many processes is going to be killed? We have a same repeated function in function 2, something like z equals to a plus b, z equals to a plus b, and in between I have so many sentences, okay, something like this, okay. But I don't want the output of z over here. Why? Because in the output itself, I'm past the addition of a plus b. So there is no requirement of z equals to a plus b and z equals to a plus b, right? So in that case, I'm going to eliminate this two sentences, right? So that type of sentence is going to be killed by my statement, that kill s, right? So input input sentences are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and say for example 10 sentences I have, right? And out of 10, if I'll remove 2 sentences, then the generated statements are total 8, right? And the output is going to be generated by function 3. So I think now, am I clear with the equation? Say yes or no. Am I clear with the equation? Okay, students. Okay, yes, yes. Okay, so let's move further, that how it is going to be executed in your compile. That there is a major three factor that how your equation going to be filled, or that how your data flow equations can be set up by your solved examples, right? So that's starting with the first one, that it is nothing but how can you go, how you want to be the output, have you imagine your output, and how you going to give the input to your company. That something like ideas of generating and killing processes, right? It totally dependent on the input of statement in terms of output of statement, right? That if you want to generate the output in terms of integer only, then you just give to input in integer only, right? So that type of concepts are there in your first factor, that it is going to be affect in your processes. That if you are going to say for example, if you want the answer in integer and you are going to just input the input in integer float value, right? So there is some concept like type conversion. So is there are any type conversion processes in your code? Yes or no? That type of checking is also there, and that type of terms is also is going to be affect to your output also, right? So let's start with the second one, that G and killing depends on the desired information. Since data flow along the in terms of your data type, in terms of your generated memory concepts, that all type of methodologies are going to be affect in your compiler, right? So if we were assume that output of sentences is unique, as well as there is some points that now at that point my process is going to be killed. Now at that point my function is going to be end. So that type of end functions is always required in your question or in your function, right? That curly brackets completed, that some type of blocks are there. Using that, your compiler can identify that this many blocks. If I'm completed with this many blocks, I'm okay with the process number one. And if I'm going to be completed with this many curly brackets, then I am going to be complete with my function number or process number two, right? So that type of unique points and unique endpoints are always required in your program, and that type of right. And now the third factor is something like we can also identify using the procedure call, right? Now, if we want to call 10 functions turn by turn using only one function, and at that time I need to specify some sequence that after completion of function 1 it will call back to your main function, again function 2 will call, it will come back to your main function, again function 3 will call, right? So something something called as a sequence is also there for your major data flow control analysis, right? And some type of pointer variables is also required for that type of concern, and even assignments to the array variable, right? So I think I'm clear with all the points. Okay, so voice is cutting. Okay, now am I audible? Hello, ma'am. PPT upload and e-content. Yes, I'll upload once I'm completed with the chapter, right? Okay. Am I clear with the global data flow analysis? And three major factors affect to your global data flow analysis. Am I clear with that point? Should I move to the next slide? So here I'm conclude our code optimization chapter, that the code
Happy ma'am.
optimization. Hello.
Happy ma'am, just a second.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Students, whoever is having problem with network issue, kindly leave the session and join again. Okay, thank you ma'am. Continue.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. As ma'am said, just leave the webinar, and one more time you can join the webinar for the same link, and maybe your voice issues are clear after completion of rejoining the webinar. Okay, let's start with the new chapter, or should I summarize the whole chapter? Is there a requirement to summarize the whole chapter code optimization? Okay, we'll start with the next chapter, and that is the last chapter of your compiler design. That is the code generation. Okay, so let's start with the last chapter, that is code generation. Where it is placed in our compiler, you all are aware with that. No need to more discuss related with the phases of compiler, right? The code generation is also part of your backend processes, right? Backend processes of your compiler. Why? Because it is not directly connected with your front end, right? So your front end, okay, some issue related with the audio. Okay, so the front end will generate the intermediate code for the code optimization process, as well as the your code optimization is also give the optimized code with the intermediate code, right? And it is going to be the input of your code generation phase, right? Using the symbol table, you can identify the locations of your variables, location of your labels, or location of your functions. Okay, maybe there is some network issue, so that I'm facing the problem of my voice. Okay, now I'm audible. Yeah, okay. So what is the major task of your code generation phase? That how many instructions they want to select for the particular given code, how many register allocation or assignment they required for a given program, and which register they are going to be used for your given program, how many registers they want for a given program, or how many assignment or load processing is going to be there for your given code, in which order that what they require to specify the order for the given instructions, right? Instructions in terms of your assembly level code, that move a comma something, add a comma something, that type of mnemonics type of code is also required to your code generation phase, right? So how many design issues are there for your code generation phase? So there are major 7 issues for the designing of code generation process. So the first one is input to the code generator, target program, memory management, instruction selection, register allocation, and choice of evaluation in order, and approaches to the code generation process, right? So right? Now, input to the code generation, as we have discussed that intermediate optimized code is the input of your code generation phase, right? There is must be a different types of forms. We can say that how many different types of forms of intermediate code generation. That we can say that postfix notation, quadruple table, triple table, indirect triple table, or we can say conclude as a 3-address code generation technique, right? Then a syntax tree methodology, as well as a directed acyclic graph technology, and the last method, that is voices cutting. Okay, now am I audible? I think there is some issues regarding my. Yes, you are clear audible to me. Tracking audio now. Okay, those who are facing some problem regarding the audio, I think you just rejoin the webinar and you can solve it. Okay, don't worry, I'll upload the PPT so that if you are missing something, then just let me know and help you in solving the issues, right? Okay. The detection of semantic error, right? So the work of your semantic analyzer, right? As we have discussed in our sessions, that detection of semantic error should be done before submitting the input to the code generator, right? Why we require to resolve that type of semantic errors? Now, if I'm going to give the input in a character, and if I want the output in an integer, so that type of mismatch of data type or mismatch of input data is there, and that type of errors are not be the good, can be not generated or can be not known as a good code generation, right? So that type of error-free intermediate code is required as an input to the code generation phase, right? So that type of error we just need to resolve before going to the code generation phase, right? Now the second design issue is the target program, right? So if we are going to see that the output of your code generation phase is target program. So now if my compiler is or my assembler is something like 8084 microprocessor and I'll generate the code for 8085, so there is no any match in between your target program as well as your given source code, right? So that type of mismatch is not required in our target code, right? So the output may take a variety of forms, right? So whenever you require the output, at that time you just need to specify that which type of code you require at that time. That if we'll see that what is the absolute machine language, what is the relocatable machine code, what is the assembly level language. So that type of facilities or the type of code is always required for my target level code generation. Okay. So if we'll say absolute machine language or executable code, so it can be placed in the fixed memory location, as we were discussed. That fixed memory location, that means it is directly connected with your target level code, or directly connected with your output memory locations. Okay. Then what is the relocatable machine language, or in which type of object files are required for my linker process or for my linker, right? So it allows your subprogram to be compiled separately. That different types of code may be stored at the different places in your code. Right? So there is some question. Which form of, yes, Hallie, are you facing some problem? Which form of IL should be given as input? IL, intermediate language code. Okay. So it depends on your compiler and depends on your requirement. That we have different types of code techniques, that we can say tree address code generation, we can say quadruple triple table, we can say the postfix notation, or we can say the syntax tree, right? So as you require the postfix notation, then you just do that process. Okay. And back to the second issue, that is the assembly level language. Okay, so it is something like a process of code generation, right? Somewhat the easier process that facilitate our debugging process, or it may be the helpful, which is most efficient. Again, Haley, it is dependent on your compiler. So most efficient is maybe a tree address code generation or maybe a postfix. So if I have a 8084 microprocessor and I want to generate the 8085 code, then it is not the efficient process, right? A code may be run in both the condition, but the output may be differ person to person, like, or compiler to compiler or developer to developer, right? So the third one is a memory management design issue. Now, what is the major issue of your memory management? So the different types of dynamic memory allocation functions, right? If I require 10 bytes only and I'll give the array for the 100 integer, then 90 bytes may be wastage for my memory, or that 90 is not going to be used by another process, as well as I cannot use for my running process also, right? So that type of constraints are there, as well as some concepts like our back patching technique. Now for the word of back patching, we just go back to our notepad I'll explain what is the backpatching process. It is totally dependent on your assembly level code, or you can say the assembly code generation processes, right? So what is a backpatching? So there is some problem regarding a forward reference, right? So the forward reference problem is maybe handled using a process called backpatching. And now what is the forward reference? So before you can say that before giving the value or before assigning the value to your variable, I just used that variable before assigning them the value, right? So at that time we just need to wait for the assignment process. Okay, so let's say I'm some example, something like example of assembly for what, for the backpatching process or forward reference process. Okay, so the example of assembly. Okay, just assume that you are just going to make the some assembly code, something like start with the 100 is a starting address of your code. Move AREG, that is register A, the value of my X variable going to be replaced in your AREG variable. Now just I'm going to add the value of BREG, comma, ONE. Now ONE is the one of the variable for my program. Add CREG. I am going to explain the word what is backpatching and what is the forward reference for your so that you can identify the variables. Those who are all are the declaration statement that X declarative constant value of X is 5, the value of one variable is 1. Okay, so for the back, hello, am I audible now? Ma'am, I am rejoining twice, but I don't know. I does not get your voice properly yet. Ma'am, I'm rejoining twice, but voice and screen not visible. Voice issue. Okay, now am I audible? Hello, Krishna ma'am, am I audible to you?
You are audible to me, but I think students are facing network issue. So we can do one thing right now. You continue with the session, and if needed, you can do revision tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, okay, students. And if there is any issue, next session. Okay. Okay. That's so start with the first sentence, that is address or second have the value of x, right? So something like we are and what is the meaning of
Hello? 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 Happy, ma'am? Hello, students. Am I audible to you? Okay. Students, I think we are facing some network issue. Kindly stay connected for a while. We are trying to resolve it.
audible? Yes or no?
You can
Hello?
continue with your session.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, so am I clear with the back patching and a forward reference? No. Okay. So am I clear with the back patching and a forward reference? We were not able to listen. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to just revise one more time. So right now we're not able to listen. Okay. So I'll just revise the same process. Now, at the running process, if I am going to run my code in an assembly level language, so the first sentence is stored something like move the value of x variable in the AREG register, right? But right now I don't have the value of x. Why? Because the assignment of my value of x is always after completion of your actual code, right? So this is known as the assignment, or you can say the constant variable assigning to the variable name. Okay, so that type of processes is always after completion of your actual assembly code, right? So right now I don't have the value of my x variable, right? So I cannot replace my x with the 5, and I cannot store the 5 value in the AREG register, right? So this process or this sentence is known as the forward reference. Now what is a forward reference? That before assigning some value, I just use that variable in my instruction, right? So this is known as the forward reference, that after completion of code, just wait for a while up to the stop statement, and then I'll give you the value of x variable, right? So one more time, I don't have the value of one variable, so I just need to wait up till the stop AREG, and comma blank space, right? So this is also known as a forward reference, that I am just going to use the one variable's value over here, but right now I don't have any value of my one variable, right? So up to the last sentence, that add CREG, comma, EE and variable, right? So I don't have the value of my 10 variable right now, right? So after completion of stop, once I am completed with my assembly level code, right? Just wait up to the assignment part, right? So now I have a value of x dc. Dc means a declarative constant, that it is totally equal to your x equals to 5, right, in a C language. Okay, so right now I'm giving the value 5 to my x variable. So now how can I resolve this method? How can I fill the blank space, and how can I assign the value to my variable? So this methodology is known as the backpatching. Now I just starting with the blank space, that where is my forward reference. So in a first statement I have one blank space with the forward reference. So just I need to replace my blank space with the 5 value, right? So this process and replacing the actual value to your forward reference variable is known as the backpatching processes, right? So backpatching is nothing, just it will fill the blank. Okay. Okay, now backpatching process is going on. So the 5 value is replaced with the x. Now 1 value is replaced with the 1 variable, and the value 10 is replaced with the 10 variable space, right? So replacing the actual value to your forward reference variable is known as the backpatching process, right? So right now I'm clear with the what is backpatching and what is the forward reference. Okay, so student, is there any question regarding the forward reference and a backpatching? No question. Okay, so I'll move to the next slide. Okay, got it. Is there any question? I'm asking to everyone. Those who are attending right now. Okay, let's start with the next issue. That is fourth one. What is instruction selection process? Instruction selection process is something like, if there is some sentences which we can eliminate, and there is no any doubt, or there is no any effect in my output, that type of sentences may be eliminated from your generated code, right? So the move b comma r0, then add the value of register 0 with the c variable. Now move r0 comma a, right now the value of a is stored into the r0. So instead of using the r0 comma a, right, I just delete the sentence, move a comma r0, right? There is no any need, or there is no any requirement to one more time load the variable's value in the register, right? So directly I can use that e comma r0. Okay, now, so that type of elimination processes or instruction selection processes is there. Now the fifth one, that is register allocation process. Now what is the register allocation process? Now as per the requirement, how many registers I want for my target code, that type of processes or that type of subroutines or sub processes is known as the register allocation processes. So as I have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 variables, there is no requirement of actual 5 registers. Why? Because instead of assigning or load one more time in the same register, I just use the previous one's register's value, and I can remove the unnecessary registers used, right? So there is a major two problems: register allocation as well as register assignment process. Now, what is the registered allocation and what is the registered assignment value? So the allocation is something like we just select a set of variables that will going to be used in your registers at the running process, at the time of running. Okay, and what is the registered assignment? It will assign the value to your register or the variables which will going to be stored in your register. Okay, so that type of difficulties or that type of register allocation problems are there that may be resolved using the some extra efforts, something like this process, that instead of assigning every new register to the every new variable, and just reuse the previous ones unused registers value. Okay, yeah. The sixth issue, that is approaches to the code generation. Okay, now what is the approaches to the code generation, right? It is a most important criteria for a code generation process, right? Why it is required? Because the correctness of your program and the correctness of your design code generation is mostly used and widely used for our session. Okay, for our target code processes. So the implementation, the testing process, and the actual generation code process is the major approach or is the major problem of my code generation process, right? So let's revise the previous we were discussed, and after that I will the session. Okay. So what is the position of my code generation phase? Yes, all are aware with that. Okay. How can we solve the sixth issue? Yes, we'll see in the next session, right? We have a different types of techniques in our this chapter, that using that techniques we can resolve that type of issue. Okay. So the input to the code generation have many types of different forms of intermediate code generation are there. Different types of error resolving processes are there. Then the second issue, is something called how your target program is going to be stored issue is remaining. Yes, I know, just I conclude with the 5 only. Hello, right now am I audible? Okay, I just conclude with the 5 only, not more than 5. Okay, we are remaining with the 2 more. Okay, so now the what is the back patching processes and what is the forward reference processes. Now eliminate the unnecessary loading processes from, or eliminate from from the given target code, right? So that type of problems are there also. Now the major concern is the register allocation, as we have discussed that no need to give the separated register for every variable. Just reuse the unused registers for my variables, that for the loading process or for the assignment process, right? So that type of processes or that type of problems may be resolved by the code generation, different types of processes. Okay, and the sixth one, that is approaches to the code generation, that there is a different types of tested methodologies, different types of significant of your correctness of code is there. The major goal is also or major concern, we can say, the generate the code generation processes. Okay, so let's conclude for the day. Okay, is there any question remaining? Right. So how many parts am I remaining for the Miss Helly? Please upload this PPT even before completing the chapter so that we can read them side by side while lecture is going on, so that we don't miss the content in case of network issue. Okay, Harry, I'll try my best. Okay. Okay. So, is there any question up till now? No question. Okay, that's all for the day. I'll just upload the previous chapter's PPT in the content. Just refer it, and then if you have any doubt, let me know. I'll help for that. Okay. Okay. Stay home, stay safe, and be ready for the next tomorrow's session. Right. We'll inform you for the next day's sessions. Okay. Thank you all.